Renee Shull, abused as a child, and my guest coming up next on Survivor Angels.
It's time for Survivor Angels, an approach to strengthen trauma survivors. Here, you can escape what draws negativity and engage your positive abilities and the gifts that you've always had. Let's activate your angels. And to help you on that journey, here's Chaplain Jodi.
I'm very happy that Renee is joining me on the podcast today. We have just recently met. We are currently on a cruise ship out in the middle of, I don't know, what are we in the middle of right now?
Off of Norway.
Off of Norway somewhere, right. And we are table mates for dinner and everything, and so we've been talking a lot. And Renee has a very interesting story that I know many of you will relate to, and that is why I've asked her to come on the podcast, because she also has some great thoughts and advice for those of you that might be in similar situations or have been through similar situations. So I'm just going to let you take over, knowing what our topic is, and tell our viewers and listeners where all this is coming from and going to.
Okay. So I'll start when I was 3. My dad decided I was no longer needed in life and tried to drown me in Lake Erie.
Oh, I just can't imagine.
So that's when my first memory occurs.
Right.
And I can see myself being drowned and my mom trying to come off the shore and save me, which she did, because here I am today.
Yes.
My dad was very delusional, thought he was God, the second coming of Christ, and was very abusive.
Mm-hmm.
So we started in Northeast Ohio. He owned a beer and wine store.
Okay.
And then worked full-time at a factory and then had 2 people run the store.
Uh-huh.
But we also lived in the back of this store. So I'm one of 4 children, and I'm one of the middle children. And so we lived in 1 room, 2 bunk beds, and at the time I was 4, and we all peed the bed. So we would be in this bunk bed and change sides because I didn't want to sleep where I peed, and
right.
They didn't want to sleep where they peed, and we had no laundry, we had no running water, we had no showers. We would go next door to a tire center store and shower there. When they closed, they didn't know we were breaking in to shower.
Okay. Do what you have to do.
Yep. So we were extremely poor, even though he was working, he was just extremely poor. And so the store was on this side of the track, and there was a railroad, and then the factory was on this side. So all the factory people would come to the store and buy their, lunches. Well, one day there was a train wreck.
Oh.
And it derailed. Did not hit the store, but it derailed a train car full of Snickers.
Oh.
So that's what we lived on for a month until they cleaned it up, was eating Snickers nonstop.
That's healthy.
Very much so. I don't eat Snickers to this day.
I bet you don't.
Because you've probably noticed at the table I don't eat a lot of some foods.
Exactly.
So don't eat Snickers. So from there we moved further south in Ohio, and he still thought he was God, but then his dad passed away. And then that's when he went really over the deep end and started abusing us both physically, mentally, verbally, like burn us with cigarettes, stuff food in certain orifices that it didn't belong, burn us with cigarettes. The cops we're talking the 70s here. So in 1964, women finally got rights to equal or just even get a job as a woman.
Right.
Well, in 1974 was the first time a woman could buy a house without a man co-signing.
Exactly.
So we're talking just like 73, 74. My mom is in this situation. We're all in this situation. She can't get out. And he hits her over the head with a frying pan. We call the cops, and they're like, nope, this is a man's situation. This is your family.
Boy.
And my husband, who was a police officer when I'm telling this story, when we met, he's just like, oh, felony, misdemeanor felony. But the cops walked away, didn't do anything. We're starving. We're living in this house again. Very little running water. The parents are fighting all the time. At one point, he's choking her. and we're watching. At another point, he's holding a gun to our heads, and he's saying to my mom, pick which one you want to live.
Gosh.
So, but again, the cops don't do anything. We have a furnace. The old furnaces, they were square, and then the pipe goes up into the
Yes.
ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
We would have to stand there till the back of our legs burned. And so we would have welts on our legs. The school didn't catch anything.
Okay.
We would go to church. Well, first off, his idea of a church was to go up to the neighbors and him preach, and we would sit outside until like 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and then go to the school the next day
Okay.
of what he thought God was telling him, or he was God.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So when we were at that location, her parents, my mom's parents, didn't like him. My mom was a twin, and the twin would come over and say, here's food. Santa would magically show up at Christmas, and it was my aunt and her husband providing all of the gifts because there was absolutely no money.
Mm-hmm.
I would be so afraid to go to the bathroom downstairs because the bathroom was, those white rocks, the big, like gravel rocks?
Oh, yes.
That was our floor.
Oh.
Because he was remodeling, because he would destroy the house in his fit of rages.
Mm-hmm.
And so you couldn't go down there, one, because they were screaming, or he was hitting her, or you'd step on the rocks in bare feet. And so we had a can upstairs that we would urinate in.
Right.
And then in the morning, throw it down the roof, down the gutter.
Right. Right.
Just to not pee in the bed.
Right. Deep sigh.
How are you
my
doing?
Gosh. Yeah. And I know you're not done either. And how much did your mom's sister know and understand, other than the fact that just there wasn't money?
She knew we were hungry and knew there was no money. She never knew we were getting beat or mentally abused.
Okay. But I'm assuming, now, your dad passed, 20 years ago?
No, I haven't talked to him in 20 years. He passed last October.
Well, he passed last October.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does the sister know now?
Yeah, she knew when my mom filed for divorce. That's when she realized that my mom was being abused, but she didn't realize we were being abused until maybe 4 or 5 years later. Till after, so we had to visit him every other weekend, and 2 weeks in August. So every other weekend we would go see him.
Mm-hmm.
He would pick us up and starve us. We wouldn't eat Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or no, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
He would hide the food because he would need the food for himself later on in the week. And so the 2 weeks in August, he again hid the food, and so we drank coffee and popcorn, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because that's what he served us.
Right.
And then, again, because he was God, we would have to kneel almost the entire time and say the rosaries over and over, defecate there, and just, I don't know how else to say it, just be abused.
Right. Exactly. So how old were you when Mom and Dad were divorced?
13.
Okay. How did she succeed in that?
Getting a divorce?
Yes.
Her parents finally said, hey, you divorce him, because it was the last time he had hit her with the frying pan and the police came. She's like, I'm going to be dead. My kids are going to be dead. So we went to go live with her parents for a year.
Okay.
But also in that house was her younger brother, wife, and 4 kids.
Oh, wow.
So there was 13 of us in this house.
That's a lot.
For a year.
Okay.
And so he would have to pick us up there for visitation, and then,
Mm-hmm.
so then in 74, she can now rent a home.
Exactly.
So we moved to another city nearby. She could rent a home,
Mm-hmm.
because women finally had that right to not have a man's signature.
Right.
And we rented, and I followed my older brother's steps, because if you got a job, you didn't have to go see Dad. So my first job was at 13.
Uh-huh. Right. Anything to avoid that.
Yes.
Okay.
And so so he got a job, and then the 3 of us would go to visitation. My sister got a job, then the 2 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got a job, my dad was like, well, I'm not picking up one. It's not worth it.
Right. Interesting. So your mom must have gotten a job then too after the divorce.
She had a job all along.
Oh, she did. Oh, okay.
well, as much as a woman could get a job in 1965.
Right.
But let me back up. So when we were in the house where we were urinating in a can, both parents were also part of the city council of this really tiny village.
Oh.
And my dad told my mom to steal money from the treasury
Oh boy.
to get money to feed us. Well, they got caught. Imagine that.
Right.
They didn't go to jail. You know, they didn't get a felony. I think the court understood what they were doing. They did have to pay restitution.
Okay.
So.
All right. So, fast forward now. How have you come to terms with all of this? That is, as they say, a lot of baggage to carry in your life.
Yep. So, when I turned 18, well, my mom had dated on and off after they were divorced.
Okay.
I turned 18 and my mom started dating this guy who was rich. And rich to me was, oh, you have a full-time job.
Sure.
And so he was rich and they got married.
Uh-huh.
And I did not talk to him the first year because she married him for his money.
Right.
Of all of maybe $50,000 a year.
But
that was huge money.
Right.
To me.
Uh-huh.
So after the first year, I'm like, oh, maybe they do love each other. And he was as kind as he could to be to all of us. You know, what do you need? What do you want? He knew the whole story.
Okay.
And so I graduated from high school, and he's like, hey, I want to send you to college. Well, college was never on my radar because my parents didn't know enough about scholarships, where to get. I mean, we could have went to college for free.
Sure.
And he has, or had, he's since passed away, 2 daughters and a son. And he's like, I sent them to college, gave them a car. I want to do the same for you.
Okay.
And my younger brother. Because my older brother and my older sister were already out of the house and married, so he didn't do anything.
I have to tell you, I just got major deja vu when you said that. How funny is that?
Wow.
Okay, didn't mean to interrupt,
No,
but
no worries.
I had that, so go ahead.
So suddenly I have these options in front of me that I can go to college. What do I want to do? I don't know. No one's ever given me VOTEC what to do.
Right.
And so I go to college. My brother, I'm a year after high school. My brother's just graduating, so he sends us both to college, both with brand new cars. And a funny story about the car. So I'm coming home from a major university in Ohio, and I am driving hot off a ramp. I'm speeding. Well, he travels and he sold life insurance, and he was in the UP of Michigan coming back for the weekend. I'm coming hot off the ramp, and here he is right behind me. I went, how did that happen?
Right.
I never drove under 55 in my entire life in this car until he was behind me.
Right. Oh my gosh.
And to this day, it's still a big joke.
Right.
Even though he's gone, it's just like, oh, he's behind her. She's doing speed limit.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I mean, the odds of that happening are just astronomical.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
So the deal was that if we finished our college degree, we didn't have to pay for the car or our degree.
Okay.
Well, I met my first husband, and I bailed on college. Got my associates. I ended up paying for the car. My younger brother finished everything, got everything paid off. Married 16 years, 2 boys that are twins, identical twins. And we got divorced. And the question was, how did I get through everything? Well, my mom said over and over again, never rely on a man. Never rely on a man, never rely on a man.
My mom always said that too.
Always rely on yourself. But here I have my stepdad that I'm relying on a man.
Right.
And it was fabulous. At this point, I have never gone through counseling, still at that point.
Okay.
My older brother has tried to attempt suicide at least 3 or 4 times.
Oh gosh.
My older sister is dealing with how best she can deal with it, and my younger brother stopped talking to my dad when my stepdad said, here's your college, here's your car, because he said, this is how you treat a son.
Okay.
So both my older brother and younger brother changed their last names to my stepdad's last name at that point.
Okay.
Never told my dad.
Probably not.
So, get married, get divorced, and then I meet Tom, and it's like, oh, this is a good guy too.
Right.
What the heck? And then my older brother and younger brother were men, and I relied on them.
Mm-hmm.
So all is good. So after my first marriage, I decided to get counseling and unpack everything and see what's going on and go from there. And it's okay to rely on men.
It is.
The good guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and then in part of that, I've learned net. There's no extra time in life. NET. There's just none.
No.
And just do what you need to do and move forward. And let everyone else tell you no. Because if you say no in your brain, why are you telling yourself no when someone else would have said yes?
Right. Yeah. And it's like you're not going to gain anything if you don't ask.
Right.
You have to ask the question. You have to ask for whatever it is. If they say no, they say no. But if they say yes,
they can't read your mind.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, got my bachelor's during my first marriage, and then when I married Tom, I'm like, I'm going to get my master's, because if I want to go further in the HR field,
right,
then I need my master's.
Yes.
Have no plans to get my PhD.
Okay. That's a tough road.
Mm-hmm.
That is a really tough road. So, I'm not quite even sure how to ask this.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? I don't want to say what advice do you have, but what would you say to women, well, even men who are listening and watching this, who are either like your mom, or right now they are grown adults who went through similar to what you went through? What would you say to them that might help them or reassure them or calm them? Because the emotions that brings up are just
huge.
Yes.
You're going to be okay. Yesterday was the past. Don't let it define you today. I broke the cycle of abuse. I've never touched my children. That was one of the things I did not want to have kids because I was afraid that I would abuse them.
Oh, sure.
And so I watched my sister have a child. And I'm like, oh, that worked out well. And so just don't be afraid to be yourself and move forward, or ask for help, because people want to help. People do not want to see other people hurt.
Right. That is so very true.
And they want to be so generous with their time to say, I can pull you out.
Right. And so, one last question. Through all of this, even when you were a child, would you get those gut feelings that I need to do this, or I shouldn't do this? It was like, I call it the little voice in your head, or intuition.
Hyper vigilant. I can read a room like that. Even today. It's like, okay, safe, not safe, safe, not safe.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because for me, being hypervigilant, or the little voice in your head, or the gut feeling in your stomach, that's my angels telling me. Because they're always looking out for us. And I think you must have had an army of them.
A ton of them.
Yes.
Well, and so you asked, or my mom went over to my parents' house, or her parents' house. Well, my grandmother died on my dad's birthday. And I had talked to a psychic medium, and I said, hey, what is significant about this date? And she goes, oh, your grandmother was saying F you to your dad, and you have to remember her the rest of his life, because she saved my mom and us.
Right.
And so she died on his exact birthday.
Thank you, angels.
Which was really weird.
Right. And thank you, Renee. This was an incredible conversation, and hopefully some of you will have gleaned something from it. And so, again, I know it's hard to talk about a lot of this stuff, so I'm very appreciative, and I can't thank you enough.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks again for joining Chaplain Jodi on Survivor Angels. For more information, go to chaplainjodi.me. That's chaplainjodi.me. And on Facebook at Survivor Angels-Chaplain Jodi. Sound effects for the show created by Andre Opate and provided by Pixbay. This is Dave Schrader. Until next time, sending you off to activate your angels.